It is said that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men experience some type of stalking, and 82% of victims are stalked by someone they know. 87% of stalkers in general are male. International research suggests that over half of convicted stalkers reoffend. In the Republic of Ireland, the number of recorded incidents of stalking have more than doubled in recent years, and this is thanks to the women and men who are willing to come forward and tell their story, and also to the new legislation that now recognises stalking as a crime. Before November 2023, stalking was not a criminal offence in the Republic of Ireland. Stalking is a pattern of fixated, obsessive, unwanted and repeated behaviour that causes you to feel distressed or scared. Stalking can happen with or without a fear of violence and can be perpetrated by anyone. There are 5 types of stalkers out there: the rejected stalker, the resentful stalker, the intimacy-seeking stalker, the incompetent suitor, and lastly, the predatory stalker. In July of 2023, stalking became a standalone criminal offence in Ireland with the introduction of the Criminal Justice Act 2023, which came into effect in November 2023. Because of this new legislation, a person can serve up to 10 years maximum if found guilty of stalking. In 2020, Una Ring was a separated mother of 2, living in the beautiful town of Youghal in County Cork. Youghal truly is one of Ireland's hidden gems, a seaside town located on the estuary of the River Blackwater. The town is a former military and economic centre. It is around an hour's drive from Cork City and Waterford City, respectively. Una had been single for around 10 years in 2020 and was happy with her life. Her 2 children were all grown up but still living at home. Una had a good social and work-life balance and had just been promoted to office manager in the company she worked for. While Una got on well with her work colleagues, that is all they were. She did not socialise with them outside work. They were acquaintances and not seen as friends as such. One of these co-workers was 52-year-old James Steele, an Australian man who moved to Ireland in 1996 and married an Irish woman. Together they had 2 children and lived in the small village of Rosscarbery in County Cork. He was seen as the pillar of the community and heavily involved in the 2 most popular sports in the area, rowing and rugby, and he brought his own children to sporting events almost every weekend. Rosscarbery is situated southwest of Cork City and sits on a shallow estuary which opens up into Rosscarbery Bay. James Steele had worked at the same company as Una for 18 months when he decided to leave and start a new job elsewhere. His colleagues described him as talkative and an easygoing sort of fella. But a switch would flick in Steele, and when this happened, he came after Una in the worst way possible. On the 7th of February 2020, James Steele told Una that he was changing jobs and asked her to assist him with filing and IT in his new office in Cork. As Una was the type to help anyone, she gladly told Steele that she would help him in any way she could, as she would with any work colleague. There were no red flags when she had worked with him in the past. He never gave any signs that he was unstable and had never been inappropriate with her or made her feel uncomfortable. But that was all soon to change. A few days after he left and started his new job, he asked Una once more to meet him at his new workplace, to help him go through projects he was involved in left over from his old job. Una said no problem and asked Steele to meet her at her office, as all the paperwork that was needed was there. The next day, Steele rang Una again and said that he was talking to his new employer and told her that there was a job available to her as an office manager. But she declined this offer, saying she was very happy where she was working already. After a few days, Steele rang Una once more, asking her if she could call to his work to help him with an exhibition he was involved in. Again, Una thought nothing of this and agreed to call to Steele's office early in the morning before she was due to start work herself. So it was an early start for Una, and because she didn't know where the office was, she arranged to meet Steele on the road and follow him to his offices. This was before 7 a.m. and it was a cold, dark February morning outside, and so once they met, Una followed Steele in her own car. When they both arrived, Una would say everything was normal. They chatted as they went into the offices, and nothing was raising her suspicions of Steele. Even when they went into the building and Steele locked the door behind them, she thought nothing of it, as she often went into work early herself and always locked the door behind her. When they both arrived at the conference room, there was nothing there to suggest any work to be done, and the only thing in the room was a table. There wasn't even a chair to sit on. When Una turned to confront Steele, he grabbed her in his arms and started to try and kiss her. Una panicked and told him to stop. Steele, on the other hand, was saying, quote, "Sure, it's only a kiss." Una, in return, continued to tell him, "No, I don't want this." He, in turn, told Una, "You won't know until you try." Una, at this stage, was terrified, and the only thing she could do was keep moving her head to avoid him trying to kiss her. Her arms were held by him by her side. Steele, being a lot bigger than Una's 5'2" frame, was no match for him, but thankfully Una, being calm, managed to free her arms and push him away. But I think Steele came to his senses also, as poor Una would have been no match for him. Steele, though, did try and persuade Una, saying he was separated and that he thought she and him would make a good match. Una was adamant at this moment that she was not interested in him in that way, that her only interest was her new job that she had just been promoted to and her children, that she had no interest in a relationship. But in the back of Una's mind, she was wondering how the heck she was going to get out of the room and away from Steele. So she suggested that they go for a cup of coffee and chat, and thankfully it worked. And so she did what she did, stayed calm and got herself out, even though she was totally panicked on the inside. The next morning Steele messaged her to apologise for what happened, and Una took it as sincere and put it down at it being a one-off experience and therefore didn't report the incident to anyone. For the next 6 weeks, Steele would send her a barrage of texts, both personal and work-related. Una answered the texts that concerned work, but ignored the other ones. She thought this would get the message across that she wasn't interested, and hoped that he would lose interest and leave her alone. But it had the opposite effect. It aggravated Steele to the point where he said he was coming to her house. By April, Una begged him to stop messaging her, and he did for a while. By June, Una felt she needed to do something, so she went to the guards to at least put it on record that she was being harassed by Steele, but told them that she didn't want them to contact him as he was being quiet and she was afraid it might start him off again. At the time also, Ireland was in its second lockdown, and so Una felt she was somewhat safe, and no one could travel outside 5 kilometres from one's home, and Steele lived an hour and a half away. As soon as the lockdown was lifted though, Steele would make his way to Una's house. First, he painted her car tires pink, and then on another occasion he played X's and O's on her front window, saying, "I win." Of course Una couldn't prove that it was Steele, but she went to the Gardaí anyway to report the incidents. Things didn't escalate though until the first letter was left on her car window, and this was definitely a worrying turn of events. The letter was in a black envelope. Quote, "Hello neighbour, I hope you are feeling horny. It is time we meet and have some fun. I have left some condoms for you to put in your wallet. I will bring more as we will need them. Leave your back door unlocked so I can quietly call upstairs. Also, you should start wearing more dresses, as I have never seen you in one. I hope you are shaven downstairs, as I like it nice and smooth. Looking forward to our moment. I am watching you." This to Una must have been terrifying. Una went to the Gardaí in Youghal straight away, and they advised her to get CCTV put in. They did offer to apply to get cameras for her, but that it would take a few weeks for them to come through. This to Una was no good. She feared for her life and for her children at this stage. So Una went about getting cameras herself and had them installed the next day. The Gardaí patrolled the area at night, passing by Una's house up to 3 times every night. Una by now was living on edge. She felt she was constantly being watched. She double-checked her doors at night, and she was so worried about her children. It started to affect her work, and she had to take time off, and even relenting to go to her doctor to help with her anxiety. But once the second letter arrived and Steele being caught on camera putting it on the car window, the Gardaí finally took some real action. The second letter read, quote, "Hello neighbour, very disappointing effort by you. We are going to have sex and I have listed the 2 options. Number 1, you leave your back door open and we have sex with consent. 2, rape. I will break in and rape you and your daughter. There is no need contacting the Gardaí as this will happen. Also, your lovely new front door will be sprayed pink. Make sure you are shaven downstairs as I will shave you. Your best option is 1. See you soon." Gardaí had an unmarked car put on the street where Una lived from midnight to 5:30 a.m. from then on. They obviously didn't know when Steele would be back, but they weren't taking any chances, and neither was Una. For the next few nights, she went to bed fully clothed. During the day, Una wiped down her house of fingerprints, so if Steele did get in and kill or kidnap her, the forensics would have less of a job to find who did it. Poor Una even thought of getting a tattoo with her name, date of birth, and the name Yall, so if her body was found, they'd be able to identify her straight away. She even got a panic and trace bracelet, which she wore all the time, so the Gardaí could trace her if she went missing. Una lived in absolute fear, not only for herself, but for her children also. Gardaí and Una wouldn't have long to wait. On the 27th of July 2020, on the 4th night of surveillance, a man would be captured by CCTV, walking towards Una's house. He walked up along the van parked on the street, turned and went straight onto Una's driveway. The Gardaí had to wait until he was actually on Una's property before they could make their move. As soon as Steele saw the Garda approaching him, he would make a run for it, but he was apprehended and arrested quickly in the next door neighbour's garden. When Steele was arrested, the Gardaí searched him, and what they found on him surely showed intent, that he indeed planned to follow through on his threats towards Una and her daughter. Steele was carrying a crowbar, which can be seen in the footage. He also had latex gloves, a lock-picking device, duct tape, rope, and a dildo covered with a condom strapped to him. The items, when found, was described as a rape kit. During interviews, Steele admitted that he wanted to duct tape Una's wrists and mouth, and his intention was to carry out the rape. But Una believes that he would have not stopped at the rape, that he would have killed her also. Steele told Gardaí that he had every intention of carrying out the rape, that he fantasized about it from morning till dusk, and he was totally obsessed with Una and what he wanted to do to her. It also came out that Steele had at least one previous conviction when he was 18, living in Australia. He was at a nightclub, and when leaving he grabbed a girl off the streets and sexually assaulted her. He also had a history of harassing other women throughout the years. After Steele was arrested and interviewed, he was formally charged at a special sitting of the district court. He was denied bail and remanded in custody, and a hearing date was set for that October. Even though Una was relieved that Steele was in custody, it really had taken a toll on her. She was diagnosed with PTSD and had to sign off work because of it. The whole ordeal was hitting her hard, both mentally, physically and financially. Una felt like she was spiralling. In February 2021, Steele pleaded guilty to the charges of harassment, attempted burglary with intent to rape, possession of articles with intent to cause crime, and 2 accounts of criminal damage, and he was found guilty of all the charges. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison, with 2 years suspended for admitting guilt. On the 25th of April of this year, he was released from Arbor Hill after serving just 3 years and 9 months. He will be on strict probation for the next 5 years and will be closely monitored by the probation services. But there are no guarantees for Una and her children that Steele won't break his conditions of parole. and when the 5 years probation is up, he is considered a free man, which is very worrying. While Steele gets his freedom, Una loses a little bit of hers, said her sister Etna in an interview. Una is seeing a therapist, but she has lost out on a lot. She can only manage to work part-time, and some days she is afraid to leave her house, constantly checking over her shoulder when she does, or checking the back seat before she gets into her car. But in saying that, she is not letting what Steele did to her totally define her life. She has her good days. She has the support of family and friends around her, and she takes great joy in the little things, like taking her dog for walks by the sea and meeting a friend for coffee. Una worked tirelessly alongside Eve McDowell, another stalked victim, to bring in new legislation regarding stalking, and as I said at the beginning, they were successful in November 2023. Under the old legislation, the word harassment was used, and the government felt under this umbrella it covered stalking, but it didn't. At the time also, if you wanted to take out a protection order against someone, it was for intimate partners only. That is, ex-wives, husbands, girlfriends, boyfriends, or a member of your family. It didn't cover strangers, work colleagues, acquaintances, or friends. But now it was its standalone stalking act, where it gives Gardaí and the justice system more power, and it is now an actual crime to stalk someone. If you are suffering from someone that is stalking you, I will pin a comment with a link that will lead you to more information on stalking in Ireland. Be safe out there, everyone.